To a man named Jeff Harry. He calls it an action you do that brings you a significant amount of joy without suffering a specific result. What on earth is he talking about? He's talking about playing, and not just for kids, for grown-ups. Can reconnecting with that childlike feeling help workers and companies be more productive? The man in the Lego bow tie says yes. Jeff Harry joins me now. It is Lego, right? Am I wrong or am I right?
It is. It is Lego.
I'm a professional.
It is Lego.
I can cite a Lego from 50 yards. My friend, this is, you caught my attention. You caught my attention. And let's just clarify something. You're not telling us grown-ups, the grown people in the building, to like be irresponsible and just let everything go to the side and become kids again. But you want us to tap into this playfulness that we've lost.
Yeah, I believe most of our genius comes from play. You know, a lot of people talk about like, oh, well, eating and sleeping and love are really important.
Well, yeah,
probably the most important things. But if you think about play is what got us through the pandemic. Ooh. Play is what, you know, if you binge watch Netflix, if you made sourdough bread, if you bought a puzzle, like think about the things that got us through the pandemic. It is play. And play is what is going to help us solve these, you know, pandemic and post-pandemic problems.
Oh man, that was deep. That hit me to the core, because I realized those were the things. So we sort of give a broader definition of play. I want to talk about the idea that I quoted in the intro: an action that brings you joy without a specific result. When you talk about business, like we'll talk about life in business. When you talk about business, it is such a results-oriented kind of industry. At first glance, those two things seem to be at odds. The idea that play could help us in business.
Well, you know, one of my favorite play thought leaders, Kevin Carroll, introduced me to this quote, you'll find the future where people are having the most fun. And which companies were thriving during the pandemic? Which companies, the ones that were taking the most risks, the ones that were willing to fail, right? And we've also learned this, like Google's 20% rule. They used to do this. I don't know if they do it anymore, but they gave their staff a fifth of their time, 20% of their time, to pursue whatever projects they wanted, as long as they benefited the organization. What came from Google's 20% program? Gmail, AdSense, Google Meet, Google Maps. Like the foundation of their organization came from play. So why are companies not playing more?
Google, Microsoft, Adobe, the NFL, Amazon. There's a lot of gigantic companies that are listening to you and are taking what you say, what you believe in, this, like you said, this play movement to heart. What is it that they're tapping into? Is it this sense that well-being matters to the bottom line, well-being of their employees?
I think it's a combination of things. I also define play as the opposite of perfection, right? Perfection is rooted in ego, shame, fear of failure, right? Play is rooted in curiosity, awe, this willingness to fail. Like I used to work with a colleague that at one time worked, you know, on the NASA Mars rover, right? And one of the main goals for her every day was to go and find 25,000 different ways in which that Mars rover could fail while it was on Earth, so that when they sent it 150 million miles to Mars and it failed over there, they would be okay with it. So which companies are willing to take risks and fail? Which companies are willing to fall flat on their face? Which companies are willing to admit that they made mistakes during the pandemic, right? Look at what's happening with the Great Resignation right now. People are leaving companies because they're not fun to work with, because they're not bringing a certain level of shared empathy, shared humanity.
They're not enjoying what they do for a living, right? If you're going to just grind for the sake of grinding, but not feel purpose, productivity, and like you said, a sense of joy. Okay, so I also think this would really kind of countervene burnout. Like if you're experiencing burnout in what you do, especially if you're working from home, I imagine this would be incorporating some dose of play and playfulness and playful mindedness into your life would be a good help with that.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I combine positive psychology and play when I'm doing my work. And I was just working with an organization not too long ago in LA. And one of the things that we did was we simply reflected back on all of the amazing work that this organization had done, how many people they had impacted over the last 20 years. Who are those people? Who are the specific people that impacted that individual that was working? And when they savored that, when they explored that, that gave them more energy in order to then figure out what else they wanted to do with their lives. So like it's exciting when you're allowing yourself to actually enjoy the moment, enjoy the process, and not just be so fixated on results, because expectations are the thief of joy.
Amen. Say it one more time for the people in the back. Expectations are the thief of joy. Let us talk about how this can be incorporated into life and maybe just away from business, because I think there's messages that really are profoundly impactful in life. I'm thinking of a girlfriend of mine who I know is watching right now, who lives in Chicago and lived in a high-rise apartment during the pandemic, was working from home in this little apartment. She would break in the middle of her day periodically for dance breaks. And I think about how that helped her. How can we incorporate it? Do we just do what Alicia did and dance during our day? What do you suggest we do at home to get some playful mindedness in our lives?
So I have two suggestions. One is a great one that you can actually do with friends, right? So you reach out to 3 to 5 of your closest friends, and you're going to ask them these 2 questions. What value do I bring to your life? Like, what impact have I had on your life, right? That's the first question. And then the second question is, when have you seen me most alive? You know, and another way of asking that is, when have you seen me most creative, most playful, most myself, right? And when you get the answers to those 2 questions back, and you get it from 3 to 5 different people that really are close to you, all of a sudden you come up with all these new ideas of how you can play, and then you reach back out to those 3 to 5 people, and you're like, help me to play in those ways.
Let's do that together, right?
So yes, exactly, because you need to have a play accountability partner. You can't always play by
accountability partner. I love this.
Right? And then the other way in which, and this is a challenging one, is I challenge you to get bored. I know, and that's weird coming from a play guy, but you can't play when you're in an anxiety-ridden state. You can't play when you're angry. You can't play when you're sad. But if you first identify how you soothe or calm yourself down, like, oh, I meditate. Oh, I take a shower. I go for a walk. Oh, I dance in my house, right? To calm myself down, and then allow myself to get bored. And what I mean by that is stop binge watching Netflix, stop looking at YouTube, stop responding to all the emails. And I'm not saying forever. I'm talking
just
about
for a period of time,
5 minutes to 30 minutes in a given day, and just see what ideas start coming up, because your inner child starts to whisper these nerve-sided ideas, these ideas that make you nervous and excited, right? And if you pursue any of them, you're like, ooh, let me start a podcast. Ooh, let me make a TikTok video like Sunshine Jack. Ooh, let me, create, let me email that person I've been wanting to email for 6 months, right? And when you take that risk,
you turn down the noise. That's what you do. You turn down the noise. Look,
exactly, and then you expand.
I love them because of the fantastic hairdo, the incredible Lego bow tie, but also because he was watching the show. Jeff, you got all sorts of points. You got all sorts of points. Thank you for this. I knew this was going to be a great gift for our viewers and for myself and for all of us to remind us about this. By the way, you can find more on Jeff's positive psychology play by heading to rediscoveryourplay.com. Thank you, friend, for doing this. I really appreciate it. We've gotten a lot out of this conversation today.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
A joy, truly. I'm going to email my friends those questions right now. I mean, after the show.
Oh.